while working remotely. And now, we are like 9 months into the pandemic now, and many of you watching have probably already made changes and adapted to working at home to the point where it's really become the new normal. But it certainly seems like we'll be at this for quite a bit longer, and there's kind of a collective feeling of COVID fatigue setting in. So it's really important that we all have tools and strategies around nutrition and around taking care of our health that will allow us to feel and function as best as we possibly can. So here is an outline of what I'm going to be covering today, and it is quite an ambitious agenda. I realize that. So for the sake of time, I may end up kind of breezing over some slides. So rest assured that you will have access to the content after the fact if you'd like to look back on it. But we're going to be talking about creating structure and why that's so important, building balanced meals, stocking your kitchen, using this as an opportunity to cook more at home, supporting your immune system with nutrition, emotional eating, and then we will wrap up with my top 10 takeaway tips that I hope you will walk away from today's presentation. So diving in, we are living in an unprecedented time of stress and uncertainty. So COVID-19 has impacted and disrupted nearly every aspect of our lives. So it's only natural that it has impacted our eating habits as well. And so some of those impacts include changes in food access and availability, particularly earlier on in the virus, but still, there are some lingering issues there. Advice earlier on, especially too, to limit trips to the grocery store, and many of you may still feel like that's something that you want to do, spend less time where you're being exposed to others. Working from home, so that's the key thing we're all kind of adjusting to. Many of you may also have kids at home, and maybe they went back to school and now they're back home, so kind of dealing with that, adding stress there. Changes in your schedule, when you're having meeting, what your work day is, potentially having increased cravings and turning more to comfort eating. Other times people are feeling the opposite and experiencing a loss of appetite. Fewer dining out options. There are definitely still restaurants that have yet to reopen, and as the winter weather sets in, less opportunities to comfortably eat outdoors, and so the indoor seating reduced capacity. So those of us who typically enjoy or rely on eating out may find ourselves with increasing our reliance on cooking at home for ourselves, for our families, much more so than in the past. So with all of that in mind, I really want you all to have compassion and grace for yourself. This is a stressful time, and so we don't need to be thinking about adding stress on top of stress by thinking about some sort of strict diet or setting lofty goals that we're suddenly going to start being gourmet chefs if we were used to previously eating out or microwaving meals. But we always know that nutrition, our food choices, can and do play a powerful role in our mental health and our physical health. And that's as true now as ever. So given the unique challenges but also opportunities presented by COVID-19 and all its implications, we're going to cover today nutrition tools, practical strategies that will help you feel and perform your best. So the first topic we're going to cover is creating structure. So when we are working from home or we're just at home, it can really disrupt, and many of you may have already noticed this over the last few months, our eating routines. We no longer have the external cues that we had to eat when we were in the office setting. We're not getting to our desk, at the same time, commuting at the same time, breaking for lunch at the same time, leaving at the same time. Our workday may be extended and maybe compressed. But what you really want to try to do is create and stick to, as much as possible, a regular eating pattern. We don't want to be skipping meals and then finding ourselves ravenous. And we also don't want to be grazing mindlessly all day long and never really sitting down to a real meal. Both those approaches are much more likely to have us feeling foggy-headed, our hunger's unregulated, we're having difficulty focusing. But there are two scenarios that I've found people are commonly experiencing when they're transitioning to work from home. So we want to plan and eat meals and snacks roughly every 3 to 4 hours, starting with breakfast. That's really the best structure for most people. There's no one size fits all, but if you're looking for some guidance where to start, that timing is going to help maintain our blood sugar and our energy levels and keep our hunger well managed so that we can stay focused. If that's not something you find you can do, try setting a timer. Have it go off every 3 to 4 hours and make sure that at that moment you stop and you feed yourself. If you are at home with family, with roommates, try to actually eat your meals with them, which might help recreate the structure that you would have had at work if you broke for lunch at the same time and enjoyed your meal with your coworkers. You kind of want to recreate that experience, and if you are at home by yourself, you could try Zooming with your coworkers, a Zoom lunch or a Zoom snack break in the afternoon, just to kind of recreate that eating with others. But take a real break, whatever you do. Step away from your workspace, plate your food, don't eat out of the bag or the box. Eat mindfully, which we'll cover a little bit more later in the presentation, but really focusing on your food, taking a break, refreshing your brain, and then getting back to your desk. Unless you're Zooming lunch with your coworkers. You want to set your space up for success. Now, everybody's in a different situation where they're living. Personally, I'm home in a studio, so this is challenging for me, but ideally you want to set your workspace up away from the kitchen, which is just sort of creating one more barrier from that mindless snacking, that overeating that we might find ourselves doing. We want to make sure we're making the healthy choice the easy choice. And that we can do that by stocking our kitchen and our pantry with the staple items that we need to create balanced meals and snacks, and also doing a little bit of pre-planning and pre-prep. So when it comes to stocking our kitchen, we want food from a variety of food groups. We want to do a little work ahead of time to pre-wash and cut our healthier snack options like our veggies and fruit, and keep them in the front of the fridge so they're readily accessible. When it comes to snack food, invest in those single-serve, easy-to-grab snacks, or pre-portion them yourselves when you get home from the grocery store. So say you're buying nuts in bulk, it's really easy and really tempting to just grab mindlessly a few handfuls of nuts if you haven't pre-portioned them out or bought them in single-serve containers. Same thing when it comes to cooking your meals. Try doing some batch cooking at the beginning of the week, either with a versatile meal component like quinoa or brown rice, or roasting vegetables, or grilling some chicken, or you can cook full complete meals and then divide them into portions in your Tupperware, keep them in your fridge so that they're ready to grab when it's time for a meal. For your less nutritious snack foods, so we're not talking here about our fruits and our veggies, but the other things that we might want to purchase, because food is, as much as it is a source of fuel, also a source of pleasure. Limit the number and or the variety of those types of food you bring into the house. And same thing with the baked goods that you might be baking more than usual at home. Not to avoid these things completely, but not buying 5 different kinds of chips, maybe 1. 5 different kinds of cookies, maybe 1. And when you do indulge in these foods, enjoy them mindfully and in moderation, and try to store them out of sight so they're not super tempting to you while you're trying to get your work done. Don't forget about fluids. So we might feel that little inkling that we want to reach for a snack during the workday, but oftentimes thirst masquerades as hunger. So before you go grab a snack, check in and see, have I been drinking enough fluids today? Maybe I need 8 ounces or even 16 ounces of water, or unsweetened iced tea, or coffee, or sparkling water, and then reassess whether you're truly hungry, whether you truly need a snack. Feeling thirsty, by the time we feel thirsty, we actually may already be dehydrated, so we want to try to preempt that by drinking a base of, most adults need 8 8-ounce glasses throughout the day as a base, and then you also want to replenish sweat losses if you're someone who's exercising a lot. So invest, the easiest way to do this to make sure you're staying on top of your hydration is investing in a reusable water bottle, and then depending on how big it is, setting some goals as to how many of them you're going to finish, maybe between breakfast and lunch and between lunch and dinner. If, again, like with your meals and snack times, if it's a struggle for you, set a timer. There's also a lot of great apps available that remind you to drink. If you're someone who finds plain water boring, which a lot of us do, you can add lemons, you can add cucumbers, you can add frozen berries to give your water just a hint of flavor without the added sugar of like a lemonade or a soft drink. And try sparkling water or seltzer. You can throw a splash of juice in there and have a really delicious, enjoyable, flavorful drink without consuming a lot of empty calories through sugar. Balance is best. So I actually mean two different things with balance. So one is, and this is what we'll get to in the next section, nutritional balance. So nutritionally balanced meals include all 3 macronutrients, is the best way to eat to have our energy levels optimized, regulate our blood sugar, manage hunger, and control cravings. You're gonna feel a lot more satisfied eating a balance of nutrients than a meal or a snack that say just protein or just carbs, especially if it's just carbs. We also want to find a balance between eating for health and performance and eating for pleasure and comfort, right? Because again, food is fuel, but it's so much more than that, now more than ever. So remember that all foods can and should fit into a healthy, sustainable, and enjoyable eating pattern. Nothing needs to be completely off limits. And when we overly restrict our diet, that's when we tend to eventually end up overeating or even binge eating. So balance, nutritional balance, but also balance in terms of how we're thinking about food and incorporating different foods. So on that idea of building balanced meals, a template that I would encourage you all to think about now during COVID when we're working from home, but just as a tool going forward for the rest of your lives. 4 components that you want to include in any balanced meal. And if you eat this way, again, it's really the idea here is you're going to optimize your energy, your functioning, your hunger, and really just feel good throughout the day for several hours rather than have those spikes and dips in blood sugar that we tend to have when we eat less balanced. So we want veggies. They're going to give us volume, so really boost how big our meals are while keeping calories in check. They're rich in dietary fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, so they are absolutely an essential part of any health-promoting balanced meal. Veggies. Complex carbs are fiber-rich grains and starchy vegetables. That's going to give us energy, which we need to fuel our brain and also our body, especially if we're exercising. And our fiber-rich complex carbs are also giving us fiber. So that's going to additionally add to that feeling of fullness, managing our hunger, helping control cholesterol levels, helping improve blood sugar control, and can even support weight management because by feeling fuller longer, we're less likely to snack. A lean protein source. Every single meal should have a protein. Absolutely essential to feeling satisfied longer, building and repairing our lean muscle mass, and by doing so, preserving our metabolism and really helping us not feel aggressively hungry throughout the workday. And then finally, a balanced meal should have a healthy fat source. So like your olive oil, your nuts, your seeds, including dietary fat in your meals, it's not gonna make you gain body fat. On the flip side, it's actually gonna have a lot of benefits. So it's gonna, of course, add flavor to our meals, but it's also gonna help us with creating and maintaining healthy hormone levels, assist with nutrient absorption, so our fat-soluble vitamins A, D, and K, and add satiety, so helping us feel more satisfied longer. Thinking about having a salad without salad dressing versus a salad with some olive oil on it, you're gonna feel greater satiety with the olive oil. So that's kind of a template for lunch and dinner. When it comes to breakfast, we definitely want all 3 macros, right? So carbs, protein, fat. If you can get those veggies in at breakfast, maybe you're making an omelet, you can throw in some spinach or peppers, maybe you can throw some zucchini into your oatmeal. It's kind of a bonus, but you don't necessarily have to have veggies with every breakfast. So snacking, all right, so when it comes to snacking, those same principles of structure and balance apply. So really we wanna think about the foods we choose for our snacks to add nutrition to our day through nutrient-dense whole foods, rather than just an opportunity to take in empty calories. So ideally, we're looking at a fiber-rich carbohydrate, so like a fruit, a vegetable, a whole grain cracker, paired with a protein source or a healthy fat. So paired with some cheese, some peanut butter, some yogurt. That balance of nutrients is, again, that's gonna be setting you up for steady energy levels and managing hunger between meals, which is kind of the goal of snacks. So what you want to do is look at your day and look at the timing of your meals and figure out where in your life it makes sense to insert a snack so that you can eat on that every 3 to 4 hour pattern, maintain your focus, maintain your energy, and have a really productive work day. How much? So this is true for meals as well, but I think especially when it comes to snacks, we want to be really mindful about our portion size. And with foods like fruits and vegetables, the more we eat of those foods, it's not so significant, right, calorie-wise. But with our more energy-dense foods, so maybe our trail mix or our nuts or our peanut butter or avocado, we want to just be especially mindful about how much we're eating. If you're finding that mindless snacking is an issue, absolutely invest in single-serve options or pre-portion them out yourself. Divide the snack foods into Tupperware or baggies as soon as you get home from the grocery store. And when you're eating the snack, go ahead and put it in a bowl or on a plate instead of eating it directly from the box, because that is absolutely going to set you up for overeating and not even being aware of how much you're eating until maybe you're done with the box of cereal, you're out of chips. Okay, so I'm going to breeze through these slides just a bit, but since we're working at home and pretty much all the food choices we're making are at home, you want to make sure that you're stocking your kitchen in a way that allows you to have all the basically ingredients you need to create and build balanced meals and snacks throughout the day. And you're not wasting time running out and grabbing takeout, but everything you need ready to go. So having those nutritious, versatile staple items on hand allows you to easily, throughout your stressful, busy workday, create balanced, satisfying meals and snacks. It also allows you to make fewer trips to the grocery store, which will then allow you to limit your virus exposure. When you're stocking up on fresh produce, certain items are going to have naturally just a longer shelf life than others. So like apples and oranges, you may have already noticed, last a lot longer than bananas or berries. So if you're trying to only grocery shop once every week or once every 10 days, you might want to stock more up on those types of fresh foods than others. Definitely utilize frozen, canned, and dry goods. These are the things that are going to last a lot longer and be staple items for your kitchen, your fridge, your freezer, your pantry. Primarily, we want to stock our kitchen with nutrient-dense foods, so those are the things we have to pick from. But definitely include some treats too, right? This is not about deprivation. This is about creating that structure and controlling the environment. Before you go shopping, shop in your kitchen. Do an inventory of what you have on hand. And so then you can build a list and make a plan that incorporates the things you already have so nothing goes to waste. And when you're making that plan, think about recipes that are practical, that are going to be easy to portion out into Tupperware, freeze some, and then be able to reheat others throughout the week. Always make a grocery list. I recommend this even outside of COVID and work from home time. It allows you to spend less time in the store, you make fewer impulse purchases, you don't forget key ingredients that you then can't make the recipe you've planned or make you have to run back to the store. So make that grocery list and definitely stick to it. An overview of if we're trying to stock our kitchen with what we need to build balanced meals, what does that actually look like? So I've outlined kind of categories for you here. Produce, which is our fruits and vegetables, protein, grains and other complex carbs, which includes potatoes and corn. Beans and legumes, I've put them in their own category, even though really nutritionally they really could fit into either your protein or your grains category, but especially in the context of COVID and working from home, they really deserve their own category because they're that versatile, that convenient, that shelf stable. Healthy fats, and then condiments and cooking ingredients. So not actually going to read through these lists just for the sake of time, but again, you'll have access to these, and you can figure out based on what you like to eat, what your family likes to eat, what's practical for you, which items you want to have on hand, but just lots of different options here. And they're not all foods that would go necessarily into meals. Some of them are foods that would go into snacks. So your healthy fats, your condiments, and then your beans and legumes. Again, cannot stress enough. Plant-based protein, dietary fiber, super shelf-stable, so versatile. You can enjoy them as snacks, so like roasted chickpeas are a great alternative to nuts or popcorn, just as something to munch on. You can add them to chilies, soups, tacos, salads, pair them with grains. Make dips, so you can make your own hummus or your own edamame hummus. You can even make desserts. I bake with chickpeas all the time and black beans. So definitely invest in these, either dried or canned. If you get the canned, look for the low or the no sodium options for heart health, and make sure you rinse them before eating. And just some tips here from about how to store once you've purchased all this stuff. How to store it, where to store it, so that you optimize the shelf life. The worst thing is when you buy all these nutritious foods and have really lofty plans for how to use it, and it goes bad before you actually get to it. So that's something to learn and something to practice. Okay, so I'm gonna try to go sort of quickly through these slides as well, but I wanted to address that for some of us who used to eat primarily in the office setting, grab breakfast on the go, eat in the cafeteria at work, maybe go out to dinner. Cooking at home is not something we're used to doing a whole lot of, and it really can be an opportunity to eat better and save money. It's environmentally friendly. If you plan ahead and do it properly, you can really cut down on food waste and make use of your leftovers. All sorts of research shows that people who eat more at home have better health outcomes, less disease, and there's additional benefits for those of you who live at home with your family as far as mental health and healthy habits for your kids around family meals, sitting down at the table as a family. But really, when you're cooking for yourself, you have more control over what ingredients you're using, how things are being prepared, the portion size you're serving yourself, all of which can lead to a healthier meal that aligns better with your goals. So if you are brand new to this, or you're interested in doing more of it now that we're going to be at home for quite a bit longer, it seems, we want to get comfortable using the tools in our kitchen to turn all those staple items that we've stocked in our kitchen into balanced, nourishing, enjoyable meals. And so kind of a quick overview. I might be preaching to the choir. I know you guys have been at home now for 9 months, but the oven is probably the simplest tool to create a balanced meal with very minimum cleanup. It's usually when I have a client who's brand new to cooking, I recommend they start with the one sheet pan meal, because you can add your protein, so like your fish or your chicken, you can add your potatoes and your vegetables, plus some sort of marinade or even just olive oil, one pan in the oven, everything gets roasted up, delicious, and just one pan to clean up. So that's probably the first place I would start. And then you can take the contents of your pan, put it in Tupperware, and that could be lunch, that could be dinner, some of it can get frozen, but you've got all the components of a balanced meal, one sheet. The stovetop with a pot and a pan, oftentimes you can also create pretty simply a balanced meal. So you can do your protein, again, your chicken, your fish, your beef, in the pan with just a little bit of olive oil or marinade. Add your veggies, do a stir fry. You can add soy sauce, you can add ginger, you can add garlic, you can add a pre-bought marinade. And then in a separate pot, you do your starch, your carbs, so your grain, your quinoa, your rice, your pasta. Combine it and you're good to go. So you've got protein, carbs, veggies, healthy fat, all right on your stovetop. And you can find recipes, or you can just kind of think about the different components and prepare them that way. The Crock-Pot, the Instant Pot, anyone who has one of these knows that it's a really easy way to create moist, flavorful, one-pot dishes without having to do a lot of work. So you pick your protein, you prepare your veggies and your carb, potatoes or grains, your desired seasoning, marinades, pop it in the Instant Pot or the Crock-Pot. A few hours later, while you're hard at work at your laptop, it'll start to smell real good, and then you'll have your meal ready to go. And this is a great way to use those beans and lentils. It's ideal now that we're heading into the winter, colder months, for soups, chilies, and stews. And it really is great for freezer-friendly recipes. The grill, so it's those of you who have access to an outdoor grill, hopefully you did this over the summer. There's also stovetop indoor grills you can have, or a portable grill. But sort of like the oven, it's a really easy way to prepare foods without having to do a lot of work, and it still tastes really good. So you can do your protein, your chicken breast, your turkey patty, your beef patty right on the grill. Grill your vegetables. There's nothing better, in my opinion, than grilled asparagus, bell peppers, onions, squash, zucchini, mushrooms. And then on the side for your carb, you could put your burger on a whole wheat bun. You could have some corn on the side. You could do a grain or bean salad, or even do like kebabs or skewers with your veggies and then your protein on the grill. So again, great flavor without a lot of work. And then finally, I know some of y'all probably have like air fryers and other things, but the microwave is, don't overlook it, right? Especially when we are busy during the workday, especially if we've actually cooked and prepped ahead of time. We just need to kind of nuke up our meals. No shame in using the microwave. You can actually cook a variety of foods in the microwave when you're pressed for time, including eggs, potatoes, defrosting frozen meat or poultry, frozen veggies, which I recommend keeping on hand all the time, can easily be cooked in the microwave. And then taking advantage of like instant rice and other grains, the minute rice, if you don't feel like using the whole pot on your stove, that's really easy. And then instant oatmeal is great for breakfast. When you need a break from cooking and you're at home, it doesn't mean that you have to resort to eating ice cream or popcorn for dinner. Once in a while, go ahead, indulge. But there are lots of other ways to eat a balanced meal that don't involve cooking. A sandwich is actually a great template for a balanced meal, right? You use whole grain bread, you've got your complex carbs, you layer on some turkey or ham, you've got your protein, maybe some hummus or guacamole or cheese for fat, pile on some arugula, spinach, tomatoes for your veggie. You've got a balanced meal and you didn't have to cook. A salad, same thing, can definitely be a template for a balanced meal. Just don't forget, it can't just be greens. It's got to have a protein, it's got to have a grain, it's got to have some sort of healthy fat, nuts, olive oil, you're good to go. And one of my favorite concepts, and this could work really well when you're working from home and pressed for time, is also very kid-friendly, is the snack plate or bento box concept. So, pick a protein, pick a carb, pick a vegetable, pick a fat, throw it on a plate, and you've got a balanced meal. So maybe you roll up some deli turkey, or you have some canned tuna, maybe you've got some whole grain crackers or popcorn, you've got some baby carrots or sugar snap peas, and then you've got some hummus or peanut butter. You've got all the components of a balanced meal. Maybe it just happened to be made of foods that you traditionally think of as snack foods. Great for busy work days. Reheating leftovers. You can order delivery or pick up a to-go meal from time to time, right? I mean, working at home, eating at home doesn't have to be all or nothing, black or white. And I'm sure you have local restaurants in your neighborhood that you want to support during these challenging times and make sure they stay in business when we're on the other side. And then meal kits. So meal kits are prepared meal plans. So one, you're getting the ingredients and you're cooking them. They're prepared meals, they come fully cooked and you're just microwaving them. Really, really great options, and there's an endless variety of them on the market now. They advertise to me on social media all the time, so I have a running list of 15 or so different meal prep services that I'm always wanting to try. But if you haven't looked into that and you're someone who either doesn't like to cook, doesn't have time to cook, but still really wants a real meal, highly recommend. And then the frozen meals can similarly be a great backup. Some guidelines if you're looking for a frozen meal: make sure it's not too skimpy, right? Because if we eat too little at our meals, we're not going to be satisfied and we're much more likely to be tempted to snack throughout the rest of the day. So look for, depending on what your kind of calorie needs are, maybe roughly to 400 to 500 to 600 calories per meal, so that you have the energy to get on with your day and you really do feel satisfied. Make sure it's got protein and fiber. So just the same way we would want if we're cooking for ourselves, read the nutrition facts panel, make sure it's got 15, 20 grams of protein that you should have minimum in a meal to be satisfied. Otherwise, again, you're just gonna find yourself reaching for, the pretzels or the M&Ms like an hour after you're done. Try to find meals that have those four components, instead of just like the lasagna or the protein and veggie meal. Make sure you pick a meal that's got the protein, the veggie, the carb, the fat, all the four components that you'd want if you were cooking for yourself, and then supplement whatever's missing. So, if it's a frozen meal that doesn't have enough vegetables, have a side salad. If it's a pasta dish, add some pre-cooked chicken or fish to it. If it's, just protein and veggies, add, minute rice or some sort of quick cooking grain to it to make sure you have all the nutrition that you need to really feel energized and satisfied. Frozen meals do tend to be higher in sodium and sometimes saturated fat. Just the sodium is mainly a preservative, so for heart health, we want to minimize those nutrients, so definitely make an effort to read the nutrition facts panel, compare different items, and make sure you're picking one with less sodium. And I just listed some brands here that I know make some good frozen meal options. Again, gonna just breeze through these slides, but I put together some ideas for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. And with the meals, we're getting the template. All of these are examples that fit that template of a complex carb for energy, protein for hunger management and muscle repair, veggies for volume and fiber and nutrients, and then fat for satiety and nutrient absorption. So each of these meals already has all those components in them, and there's enough variety that everyone can find something on there that works for them, and some snack ideas here too. So because we are living in this era of COVID-19 and we're all trying to really thinking about doing everything possible to keep ourselves as healthy as possible, now it's going to be flu season, we're going into the winter months, we might be curious, how can nutrition support our immunity? And I do want to be clear that there's no single food, there's no single nutrient that can prevent or cure COVID-19, or really any virus for that matter. So you want to be very wary when you hear claims that suggest otherwise, so before you go and spend all this money on supplements. It just doesn't work that way. But we know that we can support our healthy immune system by consuming certain nutrients as part of a balanced diet, and luckily those nutrients can be found in foods that are really readily accessible and that are really easy to just incorporate into our eating pattern. So kind of two categories here. We've got our antioxidant-rich foods and then our pro and prebiotic-rich foods. So antioxidants, they're basically cell compounds that work, or plant compounds that work on a cellular level in our body to neutralize free radical damage and prevent oxidation that would otherwise lead to changes in our DNA, changes in our cells. And so we want to have antioxidants because they will quench the free radicals and prevent that kind of disease progression from happening. Antioxidants play an important role in the whole immune response. So 4 common antioxidants that are found in the food system are vitamin C, vitamin A, the plant form of which is known as beta-carotene, vitamin E, and zinc. So as you can see from this list here, really common foods and foods that are already extremely nutrient rich are good sources of these antioxidants. So there's no one single food that you absolutely have to eat to stay healthy. Really, we want to focus on an eating pattern where we're incorporating a variety of these different foods into our diet. And then secondarily, like I mentioned, the pre and probiotic rich foods. So this we're talking about is our gut microbiome, which really is just, or if you probably heard the term, it's kind of a buzzword in the last few years. It's referring to the bacteria that naturally reside in our gut. And when we have a healthy gut bacteria, a healthy gut microbiome, it impacts our immune system. So we want to optimize our gut health. We want to increase both foods that are rich in probiotics, which are the good bacteria themselves, as well as foods that are rich in prebiotics, which basically are the fuel for the good bacteria. So foods that are high in prebiotics will be most vegetables. So if you're eating plenty of vegetables, you're following my guidelines of incorporating vegetables into all your meals, you're probably getting adequate prebiotics, but we know that artichokes and asparagus are especially high. Onions, garlic, leeks, which are great ways to add flavor when we're cooking more at home, are also going to be good sources of prebiotics. A lot of fruit, including some common fruits like apples and bananas, are great sources, and then flax and other seeds. And then, so again, the prebiotics are fuel for the bacteria, allow them to grow, allow them to multiply. The probiotics are the bacteria itself. So we're going to find that in fermented foods, kombucha, tempeh, miso, kimchi, and sauerkraut, Greek yogurt and kefir, and then aged hard cheeses. So all great sources of trying to incorporate some of these foods into your eating pattern to support your GI health. And that'll benefit your immune system, but there's going to be all sorts of other benefits to optimizing your gut health as well. In this next section, we're going to talk about emotional eating. And so anecdotally, I can tell you that from talking to friends and family members, definitely from talking to clients and working with clients over the past several months, emotional eating is something that many people deal with even in the best of times. And a lot of people are struggling with it more now for a variety of reasons. And one is that we are experiencing more stress and more maybe negative emotions than we normally would, thus increasing us wanting to eat for comfort. And then for some of us, our coping mechanisms, we may not have access to them the way we once did due to COVID. So, maybe for some people, going to the gym was a way to reduce stress or sort of get out negative emotions. And now with COVID, maybe they don't feel comfortable going back to the gym, or maybe their gym isn't open yet. A lot of apartment complexes, the gyms are still not open, or they don't have access to the work gym that they once relied on. Maybe you're someone who gets a lot of pleasure from going to concerts or going to festivals, and that brings a lot of joy to your life. Now you no longer have that source of happiness, and so we may be turning to food more to fill that void and create that pleasure. So I guess the first thing I'd want to say to anyone who is struggling with emotional eating is really treat yourself with compassion and know that you're not alone in this. We really are in a very stressful and uncertain period of time, and turning to food for comfort, to self-soothe, is really normal. And to a certain extent, it's okay, and I would just say, have grace for yourself and recognize that, recognize how you're using it. But at the same time, we want to make sure that eating and food isn't our only coping mechanism, and that the amount that we are emotionally eating isn't negatively impacting our physical or our mental health. So, if you notice, there's always a spectrum. Something that we do in moderation from time to time may be fine, but if it's something that we end up doing every day or multiple times a day, it might, be more detrimental. So we want to assess how much emotional eating is playing into your day-to-day. And then make sure you have a toolbox of non-food self-care to cope with your emotions and take care of yourself. So this is going to look different for everybody based on your lifestyle, your hobbies, your personality. I encourage all of my clients to build their own self-care list and pick items that really resonate with them. You want to make sure that, when you're feeling a negative emotion, you have other ways to soothe yourself without eating. And you want to make sure you have enough things in your life that are bringing you joy and fulfillment and pleasure, right? So that you don't have this giant void that pleasure eating is what you're filling with, right? So take a look at some of these things, figure out what's going to work for you. Getting outdoors in nature, I think, is huge because you're kind of hitting two things. You're getting that physical activity, you're getting the heart rate up, you're getting those endorphins, and you're also getting the sunlight, the fresh air. And so both those things we know really help improve mood and lower stress. Yoga, meditation, music, hobbies, connecting with others, even if it's over the phone or over Zoom, taking a bath, learning something new, right? Like reading a book or listening to a podcast, just watching something funny on TV or reading a book for pleasure. There's so many different things that you can do, and so figuring out what's going to work for you, and building that toolbox. Mindful eating is another strategy that can be really, really helpful when somebody's dealing with emotional eating, and it overall has a lot of benefits, including just improving our relationship with food, helping us feel more satisfied with our meals, tuning back into our natural hunger and satiety cues that many of us have lost track of. And it really helps with emotional eating because when we're eating emotionally, we're mindless. We're not really paying attention to how our food tastes, the texture, the temperature, how full or hungry we are before and after. We're just sort of zoning out. So if you force yourself to do the opposite and be mindful, you have an automatic check that's kind of putting a barrier between that urge to eat and actually engaging in the eating behavior. It sounds really easy because really it is. I mean, you're just paying attention to your food. You're eliminating distractions, you're focusing on the food, but it's honestly, when you try it, you realize it's very unnatural because it's the opposite of what most of us tend to do. Most of us are eating while we're watching TV, we're on our phones, we are reading something, we're working, we might be eating it in the car back in the pre-COVID days when we were commuting. So really, if this is brand new to you, I would say start with just one meal and try to eat that one meal mindfully. So tune in, figure out before you start eating how you're feeling. Is it a physical hunger driving you? Is it an emotional hunger? How long has it been since you've had a meal or a snack? Right? If it's been 3 or 4 hours, you might actually be physically hungry, and it's a great time to then have a meal or a snack. And try rating your hunger. A lot of us don't really know what it feels like anymore, and we're always eating past the point of fullness. So having that hunger scale and tuning in with yourself can be really helpful. And then note how you're feeling. Like maybe you just got off a call and you're like really anxious or aggravated, or you're stressed out about something. Your laptop's technology is flailing, and you just reach right for the popcorn. And so before you do that, pause and think, like, what is actually going on for me emotionally here? And the same thing, it could be negative, it could be positive too. You could have gotten really good news, or in a really good mood, and want to sort of amplify that with eating. So yeah, tuning into your feelings before you start to eat is a good habit to get into and part of mindful eating. Setting the stage. So we talked about earlier how important it is to set your space up for success when we're working from home. Plating your food, not eating directly out of the package, trying to get away from your workspace. If you can, sit at your dining room table, put your placemat down, put a glass of water next to it, plate your food in a nice visually appealing manner. Maybe get outside to eat, kind of make the setting enjoyable. But that is part of eating mindfully versus eating mindlessly. Definitely try not to eat while you're watching TV or at your computer. And then pay attention. Instead of multitasking, take a real break, which we mentioned earlier. Focus on the food. Notice the taste, the texture, the temperature, how when you start to feel full, the flavor of your food, and eat slowly. Put your fork or spoon down between bites, chew thoroughly. A lot of times we realize when we stop and pay attention to it that we're reaching for the next bite while we still are chewing, right? And so put your fork down so that you don't find yourself doing that. Honestly, you're gonna feel a lot more satisfied. And then reflect and respect. So when you're done with, the meal that you have in front of you, try to figure out, before you go right away for seconds, allow your body some time to adjust and figure out if you're still truly hungry. Wait 20 minutes maybe, and it does take a little bit of time for your head to realize that your stomach is physically full. And if it's a large meal and you're starting to feel those signs of fullness while you're eating, you don't have to finish everything on your plate. You don't have to all be members of that clean plate club. You can save some for later. You can put some away in a Tupperware in your fridge and then enjoy it at dinner or as part of a snack later on. Another tool that's related to mindful eating that can be really helpful with emotional eating is called the HALT method. And basically, this is a tool that when you feel that urge to eat, before you do it, you actually want to halt. So physically take a pause and then figure out what the underlying urge is being driven by. So it might be that you're physically hungry. And again, if it's been 3 to 4 hours since you've had a meal or a snack, and you feel your stomach grumbling and you're feeling a little lightheaded, sometimes I'll do the apple test or the vegetable test. Like if you would be satisfied with an apple or some steamed veggies and chicken and brown rice, then you're probably physically hungry, and then absolutely go ahead and have that meal, have that snack. But if you can identify that something else is underlying that urge to eat, you're actually feeling anxious or angry, you're feeling lonely, you're sad, you're just tired, or you're tedious, once you've figured out what's underlying the urge, you can pick something from your self-care toolbox that better addresses it. Maybe you go out for a walk, you download a new song, you call a friend, you take a nap, you make some coffee, you just take a break from whatever you're doing. Because if hunger isn't the problem, then food is really not the solution, or at least it's not really a real solution. And kind of going back, the balance and the structure, I really can't emphasize these two principles enough. They sort of underlie my whole philosophy around nutrition. Balance in terms of your macronutrients, and then structuring your meals throughout the day so that you're eating on a regular pattern. Emotional eating is a lot easier to manage when you're physically well-fueled. If you're trying to combat these feelings of emotional wanting to eat emotionally, and you're also physically hungry, and it's been all you've been doing is snacking on, carb-rich snack foods, or you're skipping meals, you're in a vulnerable position where it's going to be much more challenging to combat that urge to emotionally eat. When you're keeping your blood sugar and your energy steady throughout the day with regular meals and they're balanced, healthy fats, fiber, protein, you don't have those same physical cravings, and so the emotional cravings are a lot easier to manage. Finally, baking. So earlier on in COVID, and this may be something that you all are still experiencing, a lot of people were finding that they were baking more. One, they were home more, and two, they had less access to some other pleasurable activities that they could do outside the house. And of course, baking is a pleasurable activity, and the result, the baked goods are delicious, and they bring us comfort and they bring us joy, which we all need right now. But now we're not going into the office. We're really not going to be going probably to a lot of holiday parties. Maybe our neighbors don't want our leftovers. So whatever we bake is in our house, and we might find ourselves eating more of it than we want to. So try to set some parameters there. Maybe limit the number of recipes of baked goods you make each week, or how many treats you decide to allow yourself to have each day. And sort of just like when we're cooking, we're batch cooking meals, you can freeze some of your baked goods, and then you don't have to worry about that whole like Last Supper mentality of I just made this cake, I've got to eat it all before it goes bad. Well, slice out some slices, put them in a Ziploc, put them in the freezer, and then you can enjoy them next week, next month, and 3 months. So you don't have to deprive yourself. You just got to set up some structure around baking. So just to leave you with what I know we covered a ton of content today, and I hope a lot of it's been relevant and resonates with you. The top 10 tips that I hope you will take away from today's presentation and implement in your own work from health life. So 1, setting yourself and your space up for success. So this is getting, if you can, your workspace out of the kitchen, making a plan, stocking your kitchen, prepping things ahead of time, single serve snack foods, plenty of fluids, maybe a reusable water bottle, setting up that structure so that you have a timer maybe going off to remind you to stop and eat. But thinking ahead, planning ahead, and having that in place is going to be really helpful mentally and physically to being productive and energized during your work day. Prioritizing protein. So I mentioned we talked about the balanced meal. Protein is the nutrient that's going to help you most manage your hunger. It's also really key to maintaining your blood sugar, your muscles, and your metabolism. So every time you have a meal or a snack, you want to think, where's my protein source? Am I having eggs or Greek yogurt at breakfast? Am I having turkey or tuna at lunch? Am I having chicken or fish at dinner? At snacks, nuts, chickpeas, string cheese, whatever it is, focus on having a protein source to best manage that hunger and cut down on the mindless snacking throughout the day. Similarly, fill up on fiber. So our foods that are naturally rich in fiber, like our fruits and our vegetables and our whole grains and our beans and our lentils, these are our nutritious powerhouses. So we're getting dietary fiber, which helps us manage cholesterol and blood sugar, helps us feel fuller longer, so we're less likely to snack mindlessly throughout the day. And we get a lot more volume at our meals if we're focused on fiber-rich foods. And you're not going to get the same benefit from a fiber pill. So I'm really talking about making more of your meals and your snacks foods that are naturally rich in fiber. Volumize with veggies, sort of on a similar note, but the vegetables are really where you're going to get that. You're going to add a lot of volume to your meals without adding a lot of calories. So if you want to have rice or pasta, you want to have chicken or fish, we're not talking about not eating the other components, but we want to think about our veggies as at least half our plate at lunch and dinner, rather than being the garnish that we often, a lot of times our recipes are heavy on the other components with the veggies an afterthought, and I always encourage you, and really all my clients, to flip that and focus first on volumizing with veggies and then smaller portions of the other food groups. And veggies are packed with antioxidants. Eating the rainbow, getting your red, your orange, your yellow, your green, your blue, your purple, get all the colors, even your white, of vegetables to really reap the benefits, all the nutritional benefits of the different antioxidants that are in vegetables. Focusing on fluids. So like I said earlier, thirst can masquerade as hunger. If we're feeling thirsty, if we're not drinking enough, we may be more likely to snack. We also might just feel foggy-headed, fatigued, not be as productive during our workday. And really, when we're working from home, everything we can do to be as productive and efficient as possible is helpful. So I would say probably a reusable water bottle that's 20 ounces or 32 ounces. Keep it at your desk, and then try to set a goal to finish it one bottle between breakfast and lunch and one bottle between lunch and dinner. I have clients tell me all the time that they're working from home, they're go, Zoom calls, all their stuff, and then suddenly it's 3 o'clock and they haven't had anything to drink since their coffee when they first woke up. We don't want that to happen. We want to preempt that thirst and stay on top of our fluids throughout the day. Snacking smart, so really our snacks are an opportunity to add nutrition, stabilize our blood sugar, keep our energy levels high, manage our hunger. And we don't want to think of snacking as just like mindlessly eating packaged snack foods. We want to think about getting in some fiber, some protein, some healthy fat. Great way to get more produce into your day. So look back on the snack slide for some ideas of how to do that with whole foods. Eating on a consistent schedule, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. From the hour that you wake up, starting with breakfast, building in those meals and snacks every 3 to 4 hours, doing whatever you need to try to manage hunger and manage energy levels, and create that structure that you probably took for granted when you were in the office. Planning ahead, half the battle. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Honestly, you've got to have a plan in place. It takes the stress out of eating just so much. If you know for the week, for the day, what you're gonna have at what times, you're halfway there. You're gonna feel so much more calm. Eating mindfully, so limiting distractions, plating your food, stepping away from the laptop, and really just focusing on eating when you're eating. Great way to handle your emotional eating cravings and just overall feel more satisfied with the food that you are eating. And then balancing health and pleasure when it comes to making food choices. So I don't want you to walk away from today thinking that I'm telling you no baking, no cookies in your grocery cart. There really is a role for both, and you want to find that balance for you. Now more than ever, food is a source of pleasure and joy and comfort, and it's not helpful to deny that role that food plays in our lives. It's only setting ourselves up for failure, really. So food can be a source of health, a source of energy, and also a source of pleasure, and that is absolutely okay. Some additional resources here about food safety and in the kind of era of COVID-19. And I thank you for your time today. I've got some more information here about nutrition counseling services and other things that I offer as a dietitian for anyone on the call today who's looking for some more individualized support around meal planning or nutrition for themselves, for the family. That's something I love to work with folks on. And then in the time remaining, anyone who wants to ask me questions right now, I'm happy to try to address them. Take yourselves off mute if you haven't already.
Hi Alicia, I have a quick question.
Sure.
It's regarding after a meal, you tend to have the craving of eating something sweet, right?
Yeah.
So how is that an indication of any kind of malnutrition, or is it common? And in case, how do you avoid it if it is?
That's a great question, and I think it's probably one that a lot of people can relate to, is wanting something sweet to kind of cap off their meal. In most cases, and I don't know your particular situation, in most cases I don't think that craving is a sign of a deficiency or malnutrition like you were suggesting. I think it's more a matter of just habit, that it's something that we might have grown up with, or even just a taste thing, we're eating a meal that's savory and we want to kind of complement it with something sweet. So if that's the case, there's no harm in having something sweet after a meal. It's just a matter of how much you're having and what you're having. So, I wouldn't say most of us have room nutritionally or health-wise to eat you know, a giant slice of chocolate cake every time we finish a meal. Maybe we want to have a single serve square of a really high quality dark chocolate, or a peppermint, or a fun size candy bar. If that signals to you, my meal is over, I'm going back to work now, by all means, go for it. Occasionally, the sweet cravings could be a sign. If you're having them constantly throughout the day, it could be a sign that you're not eating nutritionally balanced meals, like I mentioned. If our meals are really carb rich and we're lacking the protein, the fiber, the fat, our blood sugar levels kind of spike and dip, and that's going to exacerbate the cravings for quick energy, which is sweets. So look at your meals, make sure they're balanced, especially if you're finding those sweet cravings happening frequently. But if it's just right after a meal, it's probably more of a habit.
True. Thank you.
I'm sure you're not.
Hey, it's Harv Bonner. I have a question. Is there any way you can provide a link to recipes, more recipes of the one sheet meals? Those are great ideas.
Yeah, you know, I had an earlier version of this presentation. I did have a whole recipe resource list, and I can build that back in and include it when I send out the slides. So I follow a bunch of different dietitians, but also like food bloggers. Pinterest is a great resource. There really are a lot. I don't want to just like list some right off the top of my head because that would sound like there's not so many. There really are. So yes, I will send out a list. But I would say with a one sheet pan meal, just make sure whatever recipe you find, make sure you can identify those components of a balanced meal. So make sure it's got a protein, a carb, a vegetable, and a fat source. And then adjust the proportions as you need to. Like if you find the recipe is like doubling up on the carbs and skimpy on the vegetables, just flip the proportions and still follow the components of the recipe, if that makes sense. But I will.
Yeah, it makes sense. My main concern is making sure I'm not overcooking the veggies or
yes.
overcooking the meat. You know,
that's
a concern.
And that's totally a great concern and why it would make sense to follow a recipe, because maybe you'll have. Sometimes the protein needs longer to cook. If you're using potatoes, it may need longer to cook than the asparagus or something like that. So absolutely having a recipe can be helpful in that regard. So yes, I will include those. I'll put those back on the slides before I send them out.
Okay, thank you.
I'm excited that you're looking forward to cooking more. It sounds like you're inspired to do that, so that's great. Any other questions? Amy, do you have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, go for it.
Looking at the a keto vegan type diet is just like really interesting.
Okay.
Where would I find recipes for that?
So my approach would be to kind of steer clear of the restrictive diets, like not that there's not a place for keto or vegan style eating. I just find the more restrictive that you are around your food habits, the harder it is to actually eat in a balanced, sustainable way. So my first recommendation would be thinking about what you're trying to achieve from following those styles of eating and figuring out if there's a way you can do that that's more balanced and more sustainable. Keto and vegan eating are not mutually, it's really challenging to do those at the same time, because with keto it's very focused on high fat, high moderate protein, very, very low carb, whereas on a vegan diet, because you're primarily eating plant-based proteins, you're gonna end up getting a lot more carbs. I actually don't even know what foods you could really eat if you were trying to be both vegan and keto. So that might be something that I'm gonna have to table for just the sake of this, and maybe we do a one-on-one session, because there'd be very few foods that would allow you to eat vegan and keto at the same time. You'd be left with, like, I don't know, spinach, peanut butter, pretty much all I think of, nuts. Avocado.
Yeah, same here.
That would be challenging. That'd be challenging.
I'm working on the middle. I mean, I am working on, the middle of it.
Yeah, the thing with keto is you can't really do keto halfway or you won't be in ketosis. So, yeah, again, probably something we would I'd want to discuss individually with you and figure out, you know, what your goals are and if there's a different way you could go about them.
Okay, thank you.
Other thoughts? Other questions? Hope this was helpful.
Last call.
These have been great questions, though. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy workday to spend their lunch hour with me, and I hope there's at least some takeaway from today that you'll start implementing it and you know, feel better.
Thank you guys for joining us. We'll send out the PowerPoint as well as the link to the video. We'll have one for all those people who missed it in our recording. But thank you so much, Alyssa.
Thanks for getting this set up, Amy.
Thanks guys for
to all of
coming.
you.
We'll see you. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.